Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. It's our final show of 2022. And of course, the final show means it's favorite prog albums of the year. So everybody's going to be partaking in this one, except for me, of course, just like last week on the Hudson Valley Squares. You get mine every day of the month. So I'm going to sit this one out and just kind of moderate here and let everybody give you their 5 favorite albums of 2022. We've got in the house, we haven't seen him in a while, but he is here. He's still alive. Anthony Farrar is in the house. Louis Nasser, of course, still from Mexico, joining us tonight. We've got the professor of prog, Ken Golden. Our center square is Eric Porter. Stephen Reed, he's still awake from Scotland. We got George Lemie and Chad Hutchinson. Howdy, guys.
Hey, good evening.
Are we ready to say goodbye to 2022 and talk about some of the landmark releases for us, right? So
good. Yeah.
Has their top 5. We'll go once around. Everybody will give their top 5, and then we'll circle back around for some honorable mentions. So we'll start off with Anthony, since he hasn't been here in a while. We'll let you go first. I know he hates going first.
Get him out of the
way. I tortured him at Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest when we introduced everybody up on stage. He's like,
I went first.
He's like, can I just like quietly, like, no, I'm going to introduce you and you're first. He goes, damn, do we have to do that? It's like, yes, we do. So
we got to do Anthony. We got to do Anthony before his laptop conks out.
Right. All right. My top 5 of 2022. I'm going to go with number 5. I'm looking at these, and mostly this is a Laser's Edge purchase, which is half my collection. I'm going with Rising from the Ashes of Astra. I'm going with Birth Born. I think came out around mid-July. Features 2 or 3 members of Astra. Very stonerish. Has that 70s vibe, a lot of Mellotron, right up Ken's alley. So I'm going with Birth Born, which was released in July as my number 5 of 2022. My next one is another Laser's Edge purchase. And this was on the recommendation of Pete Pardo. And he basically said this band sounds like Jimi Hendrix with the rhythm section of Geezer Butler and Bill Ward. And that is none other than Earthless's album. What was it? Night Parade of 100 Demons. You can't even read this. It was released in January. Three long tracks. Very Sabbath-ish. The guitar player, I think, is usually tours with the Black Crowes sometimes. Killer guitar player. Just if you like that Sabbath stonerish vibe, it's fantastic. So I'm going with Earthless, which was released in January at number 4. Then my number 3, which nobody's going to have. He's kind of like a folk guy. I discovered him in the mid 2000s on a Syd Barrett DVD where he's doing some Syd Barrett covers. Loved them. Robin Hitchcock from England, his release Shufflemania, very folky, proggy, very singer-songwriterish, fantastic. So he's going to be my number 3. Then the last 2. I didn't see him in concert. I wish I did. Hopefully I get the DVD. A lot of people predict that I would pick them at number 1, but they're going to be my number 2. And when you see my number 1, you'll know why. So number 2, I'm going with Gavin Harrison and the Boys, Porcupine Tree, Closer Continuation. Fantastic record. Maybe if they played at a different venue, I would have gone. But as Ken said, that venue in Philly stinks. But this album was a return to form 10 years later. Fantastic. Hoping to pick up the DVD. And then my number 1, who I'd never seen in concert before. He released this in January of this year. Blown away. Mindy hated it because she said, when is he going to sing? I said, he doesn't. None other than Steve Vai was in Violate. Blew me away at concert. He played 3 or 4 tracks off this. This is a fusion classic. It's probably Vai's best album in his discography. So I'm going with Steve Vai in Violate as my number 1 album of 2022.
It's I would easily say that's a top 3 album for him.
Yep,
probably. Maybe.
I have to ask. Anthony called it a fusion album, and I have not heard the album. Is it a fusion album?
It's more of a fusion record than a guitar shredder record.
I'll put it to you this way, Ken. It's not a jazz rock album. But
no, I guess not. But it's
we throw that around. That's a little bit of a pet peeve with me. We throw that around, and a lot of these things we call fusion. they're just like instrumental guitar, hard rock, prog rock albums. They're not. They don't really have. To me, fusion is jazz meets rock. In some way, shape, or form. So I don't think of Steve Vai as a jazz player. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's a fusion of styles.
It's just a great rock instrumental record.
Yeah,
I take it literally, but it's true though, Pete. It could be a fusion of styles.
Yeah, which it is. So, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The fusion term gets thrown around pretty loosely nowadays.
Yeah, it's like our Gary Hoey albums, fusion albums. You know what I mean?
But make no mistake, it is a really good album, though. That is for sure.
For sure.
Pete, that's the first time I'd ever seen him, and it was just like
he's
life-changing for me. It was so good.
Yeah, he's an amazing.
He's amazing.
Live.
Yeah, he's amazing.
All right, Lewis.
Okay, I don't have any props because I'm in Mexico. And I don't know if you can hear me because according to this, the internet is unstable, but that's good. Fine. So, all right, here we go. It was very difficult to choose these because there were so many good ones, but I'm gonna go in this order. My number 5 album for the year is gonna be Banefire by Crippled Black Phoenix. I love that record. I bought that from Ken. That is a very different kind of album. It's a concept record and it has some pretty dark imagery, but I loved it. That's my number 5. Number 4 is an album that I really wasn't expecting to like as much as I did. It's a self-titled. I don't know if it's a self-titled debut or not, but it's by a band called Green Asphalt, which to me, they have a lot of Gentle Giant, but they also have some Echoland to them. They're really good. I believe they're European. I was totally, yeah, they're great. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but I loved it. Next, number 3, I'm gonna go with Bubble Math, Turf Ascension. Fucking love that band, and I love this record. I think it's outstanding. My number 2 was a band that I played it for my wife because this is the kind of asshole I am, and she actually liked it. This is why Ursula is all right in my book. This is a band. The band is called Black Midi, and the album is called Hellfire. Now, I don't know how I would describe it to people who haven't heard it because it really is a collision of a lot of stuff. But it's not, if you don't like frenetic and confusing and your brain having to do a lot of math, don't bother. But if you do like that, it's fantastic.
As long as it doesn't sound like
my
Magma,
number 1.
Okay.
It's not Magma though. It's not a. It's no, totally it's opposite to Magma. It's I don't even know how to describe it exactly. It's as if there was some kind of hell. It's fantastic. I love it. But
the only thing I hated more than that record was Kiss.
I can imagine. But I heard it. I didn't know what to expect from it, and I found myself humming it afterwards, and it just grew in me like a fungus, and I just love it. So now that was my number 2, and my number 1 went to none other than Elder, Innate Passage. That record is the one that I have enjoyed the most. So those are my choices. I don't, Elder, for people who don't know them, they started off as a sort of a doomy, slushy band. And then I didn't hear them at the time, but I did hear this collaboration they did with Cadaver, Eldovar,
yeah.
Which is one of my favorite records. And then, but I think that was last year. And then this year they came out with Innate Passage, and it just blew my mind. So yeah, Elder is great.
It's really weird, like if for those who have gotten into Elder kind of late and started listening to their more recent things, and then you go back and listen to the first couple albums, it's a little jarring, right? Because it's really different, like really heavy, and then and the new stuff is not, right? It's not at all. So
Yeah,
cool. It's all good.
good stuff.
All right, Ken.
Okay, I actually don't have too many props because I'm good news is I sold out of a bunch of these, so I don't know much to hold up, but it's got a few things. So my number 5 is one that I don't think we've talked about on the show at all. The label came to me and asked me if they could do an advertising program on my website, and I said sure. So they sent me MP3s of the album, and the album got delayed. So I was listening to this album all summer long, and this record just kicked me in my plums. It's by Perpendicular. It's called Human Mechanic. They are, I guess, some of the guys, I guess they're German. The main singer, the lead singer, is Irish. And Ian Pace is the drummer on the album. He's a member of the band. He toured with them. And as you can imagine from the name of the band, they started out as a Deep Purple cover band. And they out Purple on this record. The singer's, I think he's great. He's he's somewhere between like Ian Gillan and Brian Johnson. And it's got the Hammond organ all over. And guys got to be playing a Strat. If you listen to this thing and you like Deep Purple, I think it's better than anything Deep Purple's been doing lately. So that was my number 5. That just totally came out of left field. It was probably the album I had the most fun with all year. The next album by an Australian multi-instrumentalist, Ben Craven,
That's a good one.
Monsters from the Id. We talked about it, I think, at the halfway point. 2 sidelong symphonic prog rock tracks. His guitar playing touches on elements of like Steve Hackett, David Gilmour, very much on the solos. And there's an obvious Mike Oldfield influence. I think it's great stuff. And I think he should be better known. Next one, I think I'm going to switch things around. Next one, Anthony mentioned, Birth. This was going to be like my number 1 album for the year. It's retro prog, 2 guys from Astra. It kind of sounds like a continuation of Astra, but if Astra was like 1974 prog, this is like 1971 prog. It's got leans a little more towards the proto prog sound. It's Anthony called it stoner. It's got that element to it, I think. It's got a rawer sound, and relies more on organ and less on synthesizer. There's Mellotron in there, but overall less symphonic. Phenomenal album. Next album, well, I could hold it up, but it's so tiny you won't see it. And it's an album that came out last week, highly anticipated. The new album from Caraba. It's called All Highways, and it was a December 15th. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Eric. It's a December 15th release, so it counts. I was fortunate enough to have MP3s of it back in October, so I've been listening to it for quite a while. They started out very much influenced by Embryo, Marja, the drummer. What's his name? I'm getting a case of the olds. Having a brain fart here. The Embryo drummer, Christian Burchard. It's Marja Burchard, the daughter of Christian Burchard from Embryo. She was in the band, and she's no longer, at least she's not on this album. So it kind of lost a lot of that Embryo flavor. But it's got a mix of krautrock, Canterbury. The keyboard player is Andreas Keynes. This guy, I mean, he just like channels Dave Stewart. There are parts of this album where he sounds so much like Dave Stewart in National Health. It's scary, and it's just great stuff. It's jazz rock, it's krautrock, it's got some ethnic stuff going on. It's
There's
just
some space rock in there too.
Yeah. It's just, it draws, and it's got that 70s flavor. It's great stuff. Really nice guitar playing. keyboards are really the star of the show, but there's enough guitar in there, and even Eric likes it, right, Eric? So yeah, so that's my number 2, right? And I'm going to call my number 1, thanks to George. George, we have to give props to George for this discovery, is Aurora Clara, Clear Dawn. That is that's a fusion album to me. That is very much in the spirit of Mahavishnu Orchestra, Return to Forever, all the shit we grew up with and we love. Jerry Goodman's playing on it. It's just a killer album. Their first album is probably just as good. Some people may even like it better, but they've made 2 great records. And I've asked the label if they're going to do vinyl, and they don't know. I wish they would. Aurora Clara, Clear Dawn, that's my number 1.
It's amazing. I've seen a lot of, we've talked about the band quite a bit here on the channel over the last month or so. And I've been interested to see a lot of the comments from people who are like, some feel that the first album is much better than the new album. Some people feel the new album is much better than the first album. There's no yeah, they're both really good or almost equally good. I mean, to my ears, they're not that much different from each other. They're both excellent, but there are people who seem to feel strongly one way or the other. Not that it really matters, but
no, to me, they're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
There's a little more violin on the first album. I think that's why some people might be leaning towards that a little bit.
Well, the other thing that's cool, it's got the flute, right? So that's like a little, it's like a little spice added to the mix.
That's what makes it unique to me, because it does have that Mahavishnu flavor, but I think the flute kind of adds that extra element.
The main guy is actually, he's Finnish born. I think he was raised in Argentina, but man, he's got kind of like channels like Yuka Talonen, and you've got all these other Latin players on there. It's a great record.
Yeah, I think on first listen I like Transformation better, but they're really even now.
Yeah,
just so damn good.
Agreed.
Yeah. Cool. If you buy one, you might as well just
gotta get
buy
both.
Buy them both.
Absolutely.
And actually, I sold out of it, and I have it on order, so I have that coming in probably in about another week or so. I'll have a restock of it.
Cool.
I ordered directly from them, and I still haven't received it.
Well, that's your penalty.
I don't know. That was a mistake I made.
Yeah, you don't go to lasercd.com. You don't get.
I misread the email. You said, hey, the label, there was a link to the label, so I clicked that and I ordered it. And I didn't realize that beneath it was your fucking link. So this is on me. I made him stupid.
Yeah. I agree.
So
you'll get it. It'll show up. It'll show up.
Someday.
All right, Eric.
Well, good evening, gentlemen. Like Pete, my picks had actually been posted a couple weeks ago on the site. So what I tried to do, kind of went more of the prog stuff for this show. We're going to do some of the fusion stuff on For Fusion Friday for the January show. So I'm going to start, and I've been annoyed all day because I cannot find this CD. I reviewed this one for the site. My number 5 is Myriador Elements. I just got this maybe about a month ago, but everything they do is fantastic. I know they get labeled as Rio and Avant, but I think they're so melodic, strange, but melodic, easy listen for me. They always have been. My number 4, this is one that kind of goes a little to the side, but it's another one I reviewed for the site. I know George always shakes his head when I talk about this guy. Stephen Thielen, Fractal Sextet. Definitely something, it's more atmospheric guitar, a lot of undertow going on underneath it. People who are into Fripp probably would like this a lot.
No wonder why George hates it.
My number 3, unfortunately, Anthony got to see him. I had tickets and I had to give them to a buddy of mine because I could not make the show, but Steve Vai and Violate as well hits my top 5. I was blown away by that record. Still am. Still been listening to it. A lot of the Steve Vai stuff, he's got some great stuff, and then he's got some stuff that I have, but honestly don't go back to. This one I've been listening to. I can't remember how far back we got the files, Pete, but was it April or May that came through?
Yeah, it was right before the summer started. Yeah.
just a great.
Eric Zeus and Cages is the standout, is number one album on that track for me. That's my favorite track.
I'm still mad I had to miss the show. But what are you gonna do? That's life, right?
He'll be back around. He always
He
comes.
will. My number two, I'm also going to thank George, and as Ken brought up, Aurora Clara, Clear Dawn. This is the only Fusion one I'm bringing in for this show, but I could not do this show without saying it. This one is absolutely fantastic. And my number one, which shouldn't be a surprise, Mr. Sherinian Vortex, killer, killer, killer. That's all I'm going to say. I love Derek Sherinian, so everybody knows that by now. And what am I going to say? There's just so many good players on this. Absolutely fantastic record. That's my number one.
And for everybody watching, stay tuned Sunday for Derek Sherinian ranking the album show, featuring 4 of us from this panel today. So more on that later, right? So cool. All right, Stephen.
Okay, so this has been a strange kind of year. And strange in the sense that when I looked down my list for this show, I thought, yeah, that's me. There's so many bands that I would tell you that they kind of rank highly in what I've always listened to over the years that have released albums this year. It's something that came up in the Hudson Valley Square show, of whether it's been a cycle with what happened with lockdown and various things, where it just seems to have been an absolute tumble of albums from bands that I would say, well, ideally, would you like an album by this band? The answer would be yes. So my 5 really only has one that's kind of gate crashed that party. But it's not number 5, because my number 5 is The Tangent. This is the band's 12th album, Songs from the Hard Shoulder. They are remarkably consistent. They do what they do. It is very English sounding. There's very much storytelling going on. They're very consistent. They never really do bad albums, but I think that this is kind of bubbling up there among some of their best. I've really enjoyed that, gone back to it a lot this year. My number 4 is Dividing Lines by Threshold. This is the band's 12th album. It's the second since Glenn Morgan returned on vocals. He was back for Legends of the Shires, I think 3 years ago, which I liked a lot at the time, but haven't really connected with a huge amount since. I felt with hindsight that vocally, although he'd been with the band before, it didn't really mesh in the same way. It does here. It really feels like it fits, and it really feels much more natural, whether that's to do with maybe how much more involved he possibly was with the construction of things and that kind of side of the album. But I'm really, really impressed with it. And it's really climbed the rankings very quickly for me. I really like that a lot.
Stephen, to coin a Simon phrase, I find the new album a little more concise now that we've had the last one for a number of years, where I don't go back to that one, even though it's really good. I don't go back to it that often either. And I think it rambles just a little bit, for me anyway.
I think that's a really strong point, actually, because the best albums are the ones where there's no downtime. And I do think there's some downtime on that album. And it does feel there's some compromises in certain places. I feel with this one, there's no compromise at all. It really is just on it from start to finish. And it's kind of reinvigorated my excitement a bit, because I had kind of fallen away from them after the one before. For my number 3, I don't have a prop. And the reason for that is because I can't get it at a price that I'm willing to pay yet. Here in the UK, I may crumble because I have thoroughly enjoyed it and continue to. It's been mentioned already. It is Innate Passage by Elder. It's kind of the gatecrasher to my party because I am brand new to the band. Obviously, there's been quite a lot of chat about them on the channel. I'm delighted that there has been. It's really good. It brings all these elements that I believe is from their past, the kind of stoner side, the doom side. It's really progressive, really intricate. But there's no kind of compromise between the two. It all kind of meshes together really, really well. Sounds remarkably natural considering what their past appears to have been. And that's the one that's really kind of come out of left field for me this year and has made a massive impact. So yeah, it doesn't appear to be all that readily available over here. I mean, you can get it, but not at a price that this Scotsman's willing to pay yet. We'll see, give it a week. That's how strong my result usually is. Number 2, probably what a lot of people would think would be my number 1. It is An Hour Before It's Dark by Marillion. This is the band's, depending on what you class as studio albums and various things, it's either their 17th or 18th album. They seem to be winning people round again, Marillion. They went through a phase where anyone that had been with the band for a long time was kind of going, oh, those 8 years just do nothing for me. All those new albums are not my kind of thing. I don't really hear what's changed, but something clearly has, because Fuck Everyone and Run seemed to bring people back on board a little bit. This album really seems to have connected with a lot of people that had lost their way with the band, or vice versa, of course. Not everybody, of course, because that's just not the way of it. But this is really strong. Lots of stuff to say on it. It's a message album. Things like Care. Yeah, I know that everyone's been writing songs about what's happened over the past few years. It just seems to do it on a different level. It's really clever, really smart. They played the whole album from start to finish when I saw them live a few months ago. It's a brave move, no pun intended. Man, oh man, did it work. And it went down remarkably well. I mean, we've all been to see bands that play new material. People kind of go, I mean, to just open with the new album and lose nobody says a lot. But my number 1 is The Theory of Molecular Inheritance. He says reading off the screen because it still doesn't trip off the tongue. This is the 10th album by Arena. It is their first with Damien Wilson, who I'm a massive fan of. I mean, we know him from Falling Off Threshold, Headspace, something else that I'll maybe come to later in my honourable mentions, lots of different things. And I've always loved Arena. And I don't know why, I just didn't imagine how the two could do that. And I will go as far as to suggest I think he's the perfect singer for the band. And I've really liked all of the previous singers. This is something special. It kind of goes back to Contagion era for me, which is my real sweet spot for the band. And I never thought I would say it because I love that album so much. I think this is kind of knocked into being my favourite Arena album of the entire catalogue. And it has just really made a massive impression on me. And again, saw them live not that long ago, and the material's even better live, which I had not anticipated either. So Arena is my number 1.
I think I would have ranked higher for me if it would have come out a little bit earlier, because I got it literally 3 weeks ago, and I didn't have the time to really digest it as much as I would have liked to. So, but I will say one thing: I probably will never remember that album title ever. Every time I go to talk about it, I have to pull it out and look at the side, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it's called. I'm never going to remember the thing.
Yeah, it is the one of the 5.
The Theory of Molecular Inheritance.
I'm never going to remember that, Lewis.
Well, that man should know because he is the first piece of
You
line
should,
in
not me,
this
no.
magnificent thing that's in here. So yes, Mr. Nasser definitely knows the album title.
I'll be like, the theory of,
That's what happened with me with
some
Earthless.
You know what everybody remembers about that album? That's $24 for a CD.
Oh, that's right.
It is
What
expensive.
can I say? It wasn't quite as expensive here in the UK. That's all I'll tell you.
Hey, Pete, I bet you'd remember if it was called A Bowl Full of Scorpions.
Probably. But the theory of molecular
Inheritance.
inheritance. All right. Ask me tomorrow, I'll forget it again. I can say it now, but I'll forget it tomorrow. I'll forget the name of the Earthless album, just like Anthony. These
Well, and
long
you can't read the title on the
No,
spine.
it's like whatever.
That's true.
I just know it
black
rules. I don't know what
text
that
on a
is.
black cover.
Yeah. The cover's great. Yeah, the music is great. What's it called? Who the fuck knows? I don't know.
You can't read the
Fucking
text.
wine. Jesus fucking Christ.
It's not
You
called
need it
that.
in Braille?
My point is, who cares what it's called? It's a good album. That's the important thing.
That's right. That's right.
All right, George.
For me, it's a weird year because I'm not confident in any of these picks really. There's no I wasn't like, oh, this has got to be in there for me. I don't think I would give anything like 5-star perfection on it this year. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's the releases. I don't know. Number 5 is a Ken Golden organization from Switzerland, Atomic Symphony. New band to me. They have one other, which I've since checked out. It's also cool. It's crunchy, melodic prog, kind of in the Vandenplas area, but more proggy and more metal. I think their metal is more traditional. Six songs, 4 long vocal songs, and then 2 shorter instrumentals. It's a female vocal led quintet, but she's a tenor and not a soprano. So the guys that don't like chick singers shouldn't have a problem with her. In fact, in the first song when she comes in, I had a buddy over here and he thought it was a dude at first. So, but it's one of those albums that at first glance is not terribly impressive. Like you're not wowed, but then it's a grower big time.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And number 4, it's been called the Aurora Clara. There's not much more can be said about it. It's just that it evokes that old days of fusion vibe. Super consistent. Every song is good. And
About getting Jerry Goodman to actually join the band. That would
that would be cool, yeah. Or at least play on more tracks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's on one track, the first track on both albums.
Both albums, right?
And like Peter said, that flute player, he
That's
had
great.
something to it, man. He's really good. If there's a star to me, it's him. I don't know. My number 3 is a new discovery from one of the viewers, that guy Kenneth Nash, Masal Aora. This is a French octet, father and son led. The father is the keyboard player, the son's the drummer. 3 horn players, and something Eric will like. There's a full-time mallets guy. He plays vibraphone, xylophone,
Nice.
and marimba. And he adds that Zappa-esque flavor to some of it. I don't know. It's fusion. It's prog. There's like a little bit of chamber music to it. I've heard people say there's Zool to it. I do not hear any Zool influences, but there's something entrancing about this. And I went back on some of their other albums, and it has that same quality. So I don't know.
George, is that Jean-Pierre Pratt?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had
So it's just Jean Pratt.
right. So he did an album that came out in the 80s on Musea called Masal. And it was a great, and that had more of that Zool flavor to it. So that's probably where that's coming from, you know.
And I think Masal existed in the 70s, and I think they opened tours for Magma, actually.
Awesome.
So I think it comes from that too.
Yeah. That first album he did, I haven't played it in years, but that was a great album.
Pete still has his concert ticket
Yes.
unripped.
Yep.
They're one of those bands. I turned on a guy,
Light it on fire one of these days.
a friend of the Fort Fusion Friday show, Mike Jacobs. I turned him onto it, and he went out and bought the discography complete. It's one of those bands. Like if you get it, you're locked in.
Pete, we should do a show like in the summer. We'll have a bonfire. You could burn your Magma albums. I'll burn my Kiss albums.
I already got rid of all those Magma albums. I don't have them anymore.
I never bought any Kiss
They're
albums.
long, guy. I'm sure you did.
Does anybody have any Credence I can burn?
I'm keeping my credence. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, but you're not burning it.
And number 2 is Eric's favorite, Derek Sharunian, Vortex. Just wonderfully produced, varied instrumental prog rock. A couple fusion tunes on here, actually. He's dipping his toe into those waters. I guess the next record is he's going full bore with that. We'll see about that. But yeah, it's just, if you're gonna, it's like Guitar Hero music, but keyboard led, and the variety of guest stars. He really picks well. Judicious pick of guest musicians, and all his productions are just great.
Him and Simon are unbelievable together.
Then him and Zanatti were unbelievable together. It's just something about, he locks in with all these guys.
It's funny because in revisiting the entire catalog of late, I had forgotten just how many albums him and Simon have collaborated on. It's almost all of them, with the exception of like what, 2 of them, maybe 3. It's
2 or
crazy. So many of them they've worked together on, and they really make a great pair.
They do.
Yeah.
My number 1 is the Michael Romeo. In a year like this, where I didn't have a standout, an album that's basically Symphony X kind of slides in, because if there was an actual Symphony X album out this year, I probably would pick it. Because for me, there's not that go-to pick. This is very close. The only thing missing is keyboard solos, And I think he kind of missed the boat here. He could have had like 2 or 3 guests, maybe get a Jens Johansson on track or two, Vitaly Capri, somebody like that. Maybe really shake it up with a fusion guy on one tune. I think he missed an opportunity, and that would have been some way to promote it. But I mean, small quibbles here. I like there's numerous instrumentals where he does his orchestral thing. I really dig all that stuff, and that wasn't on the first solo album, or the last solo album rather. So Michael Romeo is my number 1.
Fantastic. Dino sounds amazing on it.
Yeah.
That second album is so much better than the first. It's
yeah,
uncanny.
in hindsight it is. And I thought the first album was terrific, but this one just blows it away, I think.
Yes.
Dino's ferocious on it. Yeah, it's just, I mean, like I said, if you didn't know any better and you close your eyes and just listen to it, you'd think it's like New Symphony X stuff because he sounds so close to Russell Allen on part of the album. It's just, yeah, it's crazy.
You ever see any of those videos he did during the lockdown?
Yeah.
All the
He's the
covers
real
and-
deal, that kid.
He's
He is.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that other band? There was that band I used to sell close. I think it was Stone Leaders.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Even
Count-
Anthony likes him.
Talented.
Yeah. All right, Chad.
All right, well, this will be quick because 4 out of 5 of them have been mentioned. But one thing about 2022, which was cool for me, is that since Nearfest ended, which has been 10 years ago now, I haven't really done a lot with new music. But being on here with you guys has kind of reinvigorated me, and you guys have suggested a lot of good things over the last 12 months. I've picked up a lot of 2022 releases, and all 5 bands in my top 5 are new to me. Every one of them is new. So number 5 is Birth. Sorry, Elder. We'll get to Birth apparently. In Eat Passage. Yeah, it's nice. These guys are new to me. Obviously, I'm coming in at the more progressive end of their catalog. I really dig this. The songs are interesting from beginning to end. It's just endless riffs and changes, and really keeps my attention. And it's going to be the heaviest of the 5 of my top 5 here. Number 4, this is the one that hasn't been mentioned. Space rock band from Italy called Gillian,
Yeah.
Floating Islands. If you're a fan of Osric Tentacles, this will be up your alley. The guitar player actually is more aggressive than anything Ed Wynn ever did, which is great. I love the guitar attack on this, mixed with the space rock and the bubbles and the burble and all that. Cool bass lines, all that kind of stuff. Excellent space rock. Gillian. Number 3, guess what? Birth. I got it right this time. So Birth Born, again, great retro prog. I hear a little, a little bit of wobbler in there. You hear the Astra influence, maybe a little King Crimson every once in a while, but awesome retro prog. Number 2, again, like Ken said, this came out 10 days ago, or 2 weeks ago, is the new Caraba, All Highways. This album just slayed me. Phenomenal record. The only thing that brings it down a little bit for me is the last track is completely different from everything else. It's an 11-minute sort of spacey jam out, and it's cool, but it doesn't match the rest of the album. But highly recommended, Caraba. And number 1, got to do it, Aurora Clara, Clear Dawn. Amazing fusion album. If you don't have it, you need it. Go get it. That's number 1.
Cool. Got some good stuff here. All right, we'll circle back to Anthony. Honorable mentions.
Honorable mention, what everybody's been saying about Aurora Clara. That's one of my honorable mentions. Now, to me, Ken, when I listened to it, I kind of felt like it was more like a Jeff Beck kind of era there and back. That's a guitar sound I kind of felt from it more than Mahavishnu.
Not
You're allowed
wrong.
to be wrong.
You're not wrong.
And
It's
My other
of that
honorable-
era. Anthony, it's of that era.
my other honorable mention is Adrian Blue's solo record. I think it's his 20th. Elevator, saw the tour. He played like 3 or 4 tracks on it. It's typical Adrian Blue. He produces it. He plays all the instruments. His voice still sounds amazing. Great kind of Beatle-esque kind of pop prog. So Adrian Blue, Elevator, and Aurora Clara what was the album called? Cheer Down?
Clear Dawn.
Clear Dawn, with Jerry Goodman on track 1, which is absolutely gorgeous. So those are my honorable mentions.
Yeah, Elevator's a fun album. That's fun.
Typical
Right.
quirky Beatlesque tunes.
It's very quirky, very Beatlesque. Absolutely, it is. Yeah, I mean, there's little bits of Crimson in there occasionally. You know, you can kind of tell that he obviously came from that band. But yeah, it's a fun album. All right, Lewis.
All right, I have a few. I'm going to go through them fast. I love Derek Sherinian Vortex. I think that totally is. I didn't love it for stupid reasons, but I'm not. I really enjoyed Marillion An Hour Before It's Dark. I think that's it. Love Jethro Tull, the Zealot Gene. I love that record. I think it surprised me. I didn't expect it to be that good. Born. Those are very stupid names, but the record is not stupid.
They are stupid.
It's a great album. And of course also Mirador Elements, which is, I would have ranked it possibly higher, but I only acquired it recently from Feigenbaum, and I haven't fully digested it. So, but that Mirador, as Eric correctly pointed out, is a band that is deceptively simple. But when you actually listen to it, it's like every listen is just better and better. So if people are not familiar with them, they're from, they're French Canadian, absolutely fucking monstrous band.
Awesome band.
And there's so many others that another one that I would like to give a shout out to is a record that really surprised me. It's by a band called Tribe of Names, and the record's called Evolver. And I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but it really surprised me. It's kind of poppy. It's not really the sort of thing I hear, but it's very well done. So
Good guys too.
yes.
That's Tom Hyatt, right? He's in that
Yeah.
Tribe of
Yeah.
Names? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
should have copies.
And Simon Godfrey.
Simon Godfrey, right, okay.
I should have copies of that this week.
Yeah.
Eisenhart.
Carl Eisenhart, I think. And I forget the name of the drummer. I'm an idiot, but it's a great band. And that record is very well put together also. So, Simon is a very smart guy. He likes to fool people with all his joke posts, but he's a very clever guy. And he's a great guitar player too. So
Loves his root.
he's not he's more of the Pete Townsend version of guitar playing, but it's very good.
Nothing wrong with that. Cool. All right, Ken.
So before I mention my honorable mentions, I'm going to mention two that didn't make my honorable mentions, only because I just haven't spent enough time with them. One is the Elder album, In a Passage. The other one is Motorcycle, Ancient Astronauts.
That's quite good.
I've only made like one pass through
Yeah.
both of them, and I could tell they're great records, but I want to spend some time with them. So here's my honorable mention list. Anima Morte, Serpents in the Fields of Sleep. If you like Goblin, then you want to check that album out. An album I mentioned at the mid-year, what do you want to call it? I guess mid-year roundup. De Rossi e Bordini, great Italian retro prog, 70s style retro prog. Art Griffin's Sound Chaser, The 7 Ages of Starlight. If you like Jean-Luc Ponty, instrumental prog rock, jazz rock, violin rock, then you want to check that out. Chad mentioned Julian, Floating Islands. And Stephen mentioned The Tangent, Songs from the Hard Shoulder. You want to get the Digipack because it has the UK cover in Dead of Night, right, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just not on the American copy. A very good project out of Italy, the Rome Project, Compendium of a Lifetime. It's very much retro prog. Steve Hackett's on it. All kinds of guests are on it. And another album, I guess I'm going to call it my number 6 album for the year. I'm surprised nobody mentioned it. Is Orlando from Banco del Mucho Soccorso. I think it's I think it's a great record. I mean, it's, if you're expecting Io sono nato libero, you'll be disappointed. But it has Bonko in its DNA.
Of
The
course.
only original member is Vittorio Nacenzi. The guy still plays his ass off. So when he's playing the Hammond organ, you really remember, it really evokes the feel of Bonko, but it has a more contemporary flavor. They found a very good vocalist that doesn't sound like Francesco. And I think that was intentional, but the guy's a solid vocalist. They didn't want, I guess, Vittorio did not want an operatic singer because then he would always be compared to Francesco. So on its, he could have called it something other than Bonko, really. And but I think it does have that, it does have DNA, it does have Bonko in its DNA. And I think it's an exceptionally good album. If you're a fan of Bonko and you get past the fact that Francesco's not singing on it, I think you'll like it. And I think I enjoyed Trans-Siberiana. This is a much better record. It's a concept album, short tracks, but they all kind of flow together. It's good stuff.
I like the last
I
one.
agree
I never heard this one. For whatever reason.
It's really good.
Do you have it in stock still? Still available?
I can't do it yet without Francesco.
Why can't you do it?
That's what I thought, Louis, but the last one was really good, I thought.
Pete, I don't have it, but I'll have it in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
I'll have it back in a couple of weeks. I'll restock it. It's yeah.
Ken is spot on. It is true. Very good. I just have a problem looking at a Banco record that sounds with that singer. This is a me problem. The record's
that's
great,
what I said.
and the
He could have
music
called it.
and the music is Banco. The music
He
is
could have
Banco.
called it. He could have called it something. He could have called it New Bonko. Whatever. He'd come up with a new band
Doesn't
name.
matter.
But I understand why he did it, and it's a
Yeah.
prog album. I mean, Bonko went through that phase for like 20 years where they were putting out terrible pop albums, and then they started to do well. Then they decided to target their prog audience again, but they were just going out and playing live and not creating any new music. And then they finally did new music once Francesco died. That's when they really started to do new prog rock. And Trans-Siberiana, I thought, was kind of like a nice calling card. I think that Orlando is an infinitely better record.
All right, Eric.
Well, I heard Lewis mention me problems, so I just want to say this before, because I have a me problem before I go through my honorable mentions. I'm listening to everyone's top picks, and I feel like I've listened to a lot of records this year, reviewing for the site, but I've heard Bubble Math, I've heard The Tangent, I heard Julian, Green Asphalt that Lewis mentioned. You guys have all at least mentioned one record that I haven't even heard, and I want to hear them. And you've got them in your top 5. George, the one Kenneth Nash, I don't even remember the name, but I know that's one I want to hear too. So it's hard. We listen to, and sometimes you get something that's so good, but you don't even get to spend as much time with it as you want to, because you're trying to do our homework for certain shows. You've got other things going on. So it just shows that I know there's a lot of people who say, I don't listen to anything new. I've got my Tull records and I've got my King Crimson records. I'm like, there's so much new stuff out there that's fantastic. So check it out. Get out there and check it out. But
It's constant.
so for my honorable mentions, Stephen, I fit your category. I want to throw Marillion in my honorable mentions. I did come back to them with Fear, but I had a period there when I think Radiation hit and a few of those in the middle that they lost me. But I came back with Fear, and I thought this was a great record for them. Earthless has been mentioned. I really enjoyed it. It's probably one I would have never checked out without this channel. Great record. Has nothing to do with Prague, but I gotta say it. Pete, you can show your shirt. I'm not kissing Jim's butt, but this is a great record. Has nothing to do with Prague, but if you love power pop, Fuzz Bubble, Jim Bakke, awesome. And one that hasn't been mentioned, Dave Bronze, Return to Arda. A lot of Celtic influence, very proggy. David Bainbridge, I believe, plays on this with him. A lot of Tolkien references, but really good guitar playing. Some really good compositions. Check it out if you haven't heard of him. Really good record.
Can I ask a stupid question? Is
Yep.
that the guys he used to play with, Robin Trower? Do I have him mixed up with another
I
guy?
think so. I think who, Bainbridge or Bronze?
No, Bronze.
You know what? I don't know, Ken.
It's
I can't-
BRONZ.
BRONS.
Oh, then I think it's a different guy.
Different guy? Okay.
All right, Stephen.
Okay, I have a few, so I will try and be quite quick. Of the few that I have, though, there was two that I really struggled not to force into my top 5. First of those is The Last Great Adventurer from Galahad, which I've really enjoyed. We reviewed this on the channel at length, so I won't go into too much detail. Really good. If you've enjoyed their stuff before, you'll like that a lot. And the other one is Widdershins by Gandalf's Fist. I've spoken about them on the show before as well. I worried about how they would follow up a 3 CD opus that was like a radio play and various things, and the answer is to go in a completely different direction and still sound exactly like Gandalf's Fist. That's a really, really good album. Other ones, Paint the Sky by Lalu. Damon Wilson on vocals here. Really clicks, probably shouldn't. It's really good. Thanks to George for reminding me to go and listen to that album, because I had forgotten all about it. This is Tiktalikka by Charlie Griffiths from Haken, the guitarist in the band. This, to me, when I first heard bits and bobs on videos and things, it sounded like it was going to be mega technical. It is. It's really accessible. It's really fun. I have Faldom by a guitarist called Neil Campbell. He is primarily an acoustic guitarist from Liverpool. This year he's done a lot of different things, teamed up with a cello player. Here he's done a kind of full-blown conceptual-based instrumental album that's got strings, electronics, really, really good, and he's really consistent. I have gone for Above Cirrus by Pure Reason Revolution. I've got The Testament by Seventh Wonder. Are they prog? Are they not? I don't really care, because Digital Noise Alliance from Queensryche, wow, this really caught me by surprise. I've enjoyed the last couple of albums since they've changed singer and so on and so. This is right up there with the best things they've done. Really, really like this a lot. Don't say that lightly. Star One, Revel in Time, Arjen Lucassen, probably my favourite project of his. And just to echo what basically everybody has said, Birth with Bomb, really good. And thanks to everybody here, because this would have passed me by. I haven't heard a thing about it over here, but the chat and everything that we've got, it was talked about a lot. This is really good. And that's me.
Stephen, did you forget this?
No, I did not, Anthony. I did not forget that at all. I think that to me personally, and I hope you don't take umbrage at this, that to me is the perfect example of an average album from a great band.
Wow.
There you go. I think if you look at their catalogue, it fits right in around the middle somewhere. It's not bad. It's not great. Not to me. Apologies to everybody who disagrees, because there will be lots.
No, I mean, it was my number 31 of the year, and I like it. It's good. They have much better, but it's solid for a band that's been away for so long. But it's not. I don't think it's a great album, but it's fun. It's a good album.
We're gonna have this discussion when I come over for Hillage, okay?
Absolutely. You can convince me otherwise.
Yeah, I heard all the samples. I heard all the songs they threw up there. Never had even the slightest interest in buying it.
Gee, I'm shocked.
Like,
Yeah, I think it's good. It's a really solid album. I like it from start to finish. It feels a little bit like a construct to me. I can't get past the thought that it feels like a band trying to sound like themselves. There's something about it that just I can't make click. And it doesn't help that the bonus tracks, because yes, I'm talking about an album that, same as Pete, it's in the 30s in my long list. I went and bought the deluxe version and all this kind of stuff and pre-ordered. The bonus tracks, it's better than half the album. It makes no sense. Anyway, sorry.
Right. To me, it sounds like like the Future Bites didn't do as well. I think the Future Bites is a more genuine representation of where Steven Wilson wants to be. And this is just porcupine tree by numbers. The dude phoned it in. I don't know why people don't just want to say it. The guy phoned it in the most cynical way imaginable. That's what it is. Let's just cut the shit.
Someday, Louise, someday.
How do you really feel, Louis?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't agree with that because I think these songs have been in the works for years, and they just finally were able to get the time to put it together.
Yeah,
And
I
it
mean,
was,
and they
you
were
know,
they were
it-
jammed in. They weren't all just written by Stephen Wilson.
Right.
I think people often get lost in what he's become. I think for many people, he seems to be, rightly or wrongly, the face of prog now. Some people embrace that. Some people are reviled by that. Either way, it's not his fault. I don't think he holds himself up as some kind of messiah figure, but he's certainly viewed as that in some corners, rightly or wrongly. I don't know. He's not the villain in every piece, though. And that seems to be how it's played now. Everything is Stephen Wilson's fault.
Yeah, well, let's just
the new
remember that his
Phil
drummer is the Messiah.
I'm with you there.
Oh, man. All right, George.
I got Lalu, Paint the Sky. Easily the best of the 3 Lalu discs for me. If you ever wondered what it would sound like if Yes was a metallic band and had better players, that's Lalu. Another Ken recommend, CDG Project, Visions. This is the early tracks sound like Planet X. As the album goes on, it sounds like instrumental Dream Theater. It's basically a duo, keyboards and drums, and then there's guest guitar players on every song, or 4 out of the 6 songs anyway. But intense. If there's an issue with it, it's a little one note. It's a little just trying to take your head off, but maybe they'll develop beyond that. Seventh Wonder, The Testament, like Steven said. This band seems like everybody has different favorite albums and the albums that they say don't work. A lot of people say this doesn't work. Heard it before, whatever. To me, it's one of their good ones. And a couple that I've got digitally, I got Jan Rivera, Existential Paranoia. It's a guitar player album. It's a shred album, but it's classier than that. The rhythm section is Marco Miniman and Mohini Day. That's really good. And the last one is Gleb Kolyadin, Outland, the Russian keyboard player with Anthony's hero, Gavin Harrison, on drums. It's a really good album. Maybe not quite as good as the last one, but not too far off. That's what I got.
Gavin makes any album so good.
It's good.
I think it's coming out on CD next year. Next year, in the first few months of 2023.
It's on the Bandcamp, but I just haven't gotten it yet.
I asked K-Scope about it, and they said it was coming.
All right, Chad.
All right. Well, a couple that didn't quite make my honorable mentions, I'm glad were mentioned. Pure Reason Revolution, Marillion, Anima Morte, Star One, all solid releases. But my honorables, Wasafiri, Clearlight, great fusion album, more in the Weather Report vein, a little not as aggressive as like Aurora Clara, but really, really cool stuff. A lot of great keyboard work. The guitar comes in starts to stand out more a couple tracks in, but really solid record. I did like the Porcupine Tree record, so I wasn't sure what to think of it. I listened to it on YouTube on something, and it surprised me. So I bought it and I liked it. There we have it. The new one from Collage, In and Out. I think is that what it's called? Over and Out. Sorry, Over and Out. New guitar player, new singer. The singer actually sounds a little bit like Fish. The guitar player sounds a lot like Merrick Gill, so it's a good continuation of their sound. They haven't put an album out since Safe, which was back in the 90s. Great Polish neo band. If you like Collage, check out their new one. Starts off with a 21-minute epic title track. Very cool.
Steve Rothery's on it.
Yeah, he's on the last track. The Tronosonic Experience, the Shadow Volumes 1 and 2. I like 2 a little bit better. Good aggressive rock fusion, lots of sax, very, very cool stuff. And you put the 2 covers together, it looks even better. I should have done that for the visual. And as mentioned by Eric and by Luis, the new Myriador Elements. There's my honorables.
There you go.
There it is.
Even better on LP.
There we go. There were one outside my honorables, you see, so in case lots of them got
There it
mentioned
is.
at the
Thank you.
side. So
Very good. That's
Yeah,
so
those
cool.
are those are fun albums. Those are good.
Yeah.
All right. So for those watching, hopefully you've been paying attention to my top 31 countdown. But if you haven't, I'm going to now list all the prog albums that are in my top 31, just so you got them. Porcupine Tree, Close Your Continuation, came in at number 31. Marillion, An Hour Before It's Dark, number 30. Let's see. Seventh Wonder, The Testament, number 23. Steve Vai and Violate, number 22. Let's see. Derek Sherinian, Vortex, number 18. Bubble Math, Turf Ascension, number 17. Star One, Revel in Time, number 15. Aurora Clara, Clear Dawn, number 13. King Buffalo, number 11. Regenerator, Birth Born, number 10. Jethro Tull, The Zealot Gene, number 9. Elder Innate Passage, number 7. Michael Romeo, War of the Worlds, Part 2, number 6. And that's all you get. Obviously, we have a couple days left, so.
Nice.
George, was that Kick the Cat release? Was that 21?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully we see something new from them sometime in the not too distant future. We'll see. They're not that.
It's just hard to.
So now they're doing a drummer change. So
It's going to be a while.
The Humphrey McGee guy is no longer going to be with them.
yeah, Humphreys is going back out next year. So he's going to go back out with them.
I see.
Cool.
So Pete, is Chuck going to give his top 5 during Monsters Den tomorrow night?
We'll see. We'll see.
Isn't that Thursday? Tomorrow's
Oh,
only
boy.
Wednesday.
Yeah, tomorrow's only Wednesday. Yeah, Thursday. So we'll see. All right. So there you have our picks for top prog albums of the year. We'll make sure we get everybody's picks down in the comments section below. And for those of you who have been listening to new music this year, please put your favorite releases of 2022 down below. But man, we're moving into 2023 in just a couple days. So I'm sure this time next year, we'll do this all over again. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Of course, Anthony.
See you
Always
next
awesome.
December, Anthony.
We'll see you in 6 months, man.
Hopefully we'll see Anthony back with his yellow hoodie before you know it. So thanks for watching, everybody. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell to get alert of all of our content as it posts. And we'll see you tomorrow with some new album reviews. Thursday, we got the Monsters Den. Friday morning at the Funhouse with Martin Popoff. Saturday, the UK Connection with Stephen, myself, and Simon. And then we've got Ranking the Albums this Sunday. Like we mentioned, Derek Sherinian and all his solo albums. That's coming up on Sunday. Till then, have a great New Year's weekend and happy, healthy one and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you all here on In the Prog Seat in 2023. For Anthony Ferraro, Louis Nasser, Ken Golden, Eric Porter, Stephen Reed, George Lemie, and Chad Hutchinson, and Chuck Alvarez, wherever he may be tonight. Chad, what's going? Chad, what's going? Chuck, what's going on? For Chad Hutchinson, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon here on In the Prog Seat. Take care.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
New Year.